Hello, and welcome. Welcome again to, this is the inaugural Ask Mark Anything. If you have any questions out there for anyone here at Kynection, the number one person to answer those questions is, of course, my friend and yours, Mr. Mark. And how are you, man?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Now, this is, of course, live. This is very live. So if you are out there and you're watching and you'd like to get involved, if there's anything you'd like to ask us, please jump on over there into the comments. Comments are on that side, aren't they? All right. Jump into the comments and ask us anything you want. Pop it on in there, and we'll be able to answer your questions today. So what we're going to do to get it going is just to run through some of our favorite frequently asked questions that we always get here at Kynection. So tell us, please, something as simple as this. If you've got questions, where do you go? Where would you find some how-tos for the connections? Not necessarily the app. We're working mostly in web today, but we will take questions on anything. Can you show us where you might find some how-tos?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of content on our support portal. So as your project is handed over, you will have access to our support resources. So the URL to access that is support.kynection.com. We'll send that out, and we'll also send out any new users to access the system. But this is open to anybody who's got the URL, but there is additional content to those who have a specific login to access the full support portal to log support tickets. So there's some modules here that will have information. It's an ongoing piece. There is a lot that will be getting added in the coming months, but there's a starting point. So hit that search at the top to have a look what you can potentially find to answer any questions you might have.
Fantastic. Now, something that we get a lot, people getting notifications on the browser. Where can people find, or can they update their own notifications?
They sure can. So every single user account has the ability to update their own account, which is in the top corner. Depending on what access you have, I'm currently in an administrator access portal. Depending if you're a standard user or a manager, your view may look different to this. But once you're in there, you would click into the notifications tab, and you've got access to all the areas you can be notified about. For the most part, most people want them turned off, but there might be some key functionality, such as certain form templates that you want to be notified of any being submitted. Key example, a leave request as a supervisor, or a incident form or incident capture as a OHS manager, as an example.
Yeah, cool. So tell us how, this is one we get all the time. Now, people often ask, why can't I see the approve button on a form template? Sure. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but a lot of people out there are struggling to find it. Where can we fix that?
So depending on the template, there's what we call a workflow, with certain workflows needing certain people to approve them. So a key example of that would be our leave request form. So as part of a leave request, the individual will log the leave request, and then it will go to a certain supervisor or payroll or whoever it might be in your business to approve that request. So in waiting for approval, you may have the access to approve there, or you may not. If you do not, as a user, and you need to complete that role, you would need to update that in the template itself. So as I said, the workflows are in here, and you will have access to update the staff that it goes to when it hits that workflow state. So in this case, as the leave request is submitted, it will go through to admin for approval.
Cool. A lot of people, another thing that always gets asked is, why do I have to, and I should remind everybody out there, if you do want to ask Mark anything, this is the time. So jump on there, type on in your little questions to YouTube and get your own question asked. But one thing that people are always asking is, why do I have to wipe data or uninstall the app constantly? It seems to be a problem for people.
It's usually due to the nature of how the app works, in that it downloads a full version of the database to your device, so that when you are making changes, particularly in offline mode, it will keep the full directory to allow you to keep using the application and also make updates. So a heap of other applications, if you haven't got connectivity, the app will say cannot connect. Ours will allow you to keep utilizing it. Then the next time it jumps back to the internet connectivity, you'll have that synced. So sometimes the reason why you need to log out is that synchronize of the full database has missed some data, or it's not able to update for whatever reason. So to get a full fresh sync, the best option would be to log out, get a fresh sync of everything, and log back in.
Right.
It's not required in all cases, but it's a suggestion that we make to most of our clients who are having issues on seeing certain content that they should be able to see. Is a first step troubleshoot guide.
Sure. So this is the kind of archiving that we talk about?
Different. One in the same. So archiving is in that same concept where you've got all the data that's relevant to your login getting installed onto your device, whether it be the web cache, as it's called, or the browser cache.
Right.
Archive doesn't get downloaded into that section. So to keep the database nice and light within a certain amount of data limit, because if you can imagine you've got a database of 300 megabytes and that needs to all download to your device, that's chewing a lot of data, and it's also going to take a lot of the speed of filtering through records quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we archive that out, still 100% accessible, but example of an archive setup on web. I'm currently in the forms module. Every single form template has the capability of having an archive rule set up. So in this case, the heavy vehicle daily inspections are set to archive after 365 days. So different rules can be applied to different sections of the app.
Right. Couldn't quite see that there, but that's all good. So let's do something a bit more fun. Let's talk about customization of the new shortcuts menu, because that's looking nice and pretty.
So you're seeing it before. Yeah. Some of you may have access to this. Some of you may have your own custom shortcuts menus. But this is our new company-driven shortcuts app. So the main advantage of this is that we can filter what can be seen to different roles in the business. So you've got your first level access, which is whether you're a standard user or a manager. And your second level access, which is I'm a crew lead, or say crew member, or a supervisor. So between those two roles, you may have access to sales as a supervisor, as an example. You don't want access to sales as a crew member. So depending on the structure of your database, it will significantly help with access rights. So configuring it, if you go to configuration, which is only accessible to administrators of the database.
Right.
So this is typically if it does need changes made, you would need to come back to the Kynection team to make them. But this will allow you to configure what roles there are in the business, what functions need to be accessed. So if I go into equipment, that's the particular section for how to access an asset, categories, equipment. There's obviously code behind it, but you as a user will not need to get into the depths of that. So then from that function list, what are we defining as being required by role? In this case, admin, you have access to calendars, contact sales, assets, categories, equipment, etc. If, say, you wanted this person to access an area that isn't accessible, such as policies and procedures, you would click into there and confirm your changes, and then that would push that additional option into the shortcut menu.
Cool. Now we've got another question here. Let me just bring it on up. One from actual real life. Isn't that amazing? People out there. It's Devanshu has asked, what is the favorites?
So in the same view we're looking at here, you've got a concept of favorites. So if there's certain areas in the shortcuts that you're going to consistently and others you are rarely going to, you've got the concept of adding certain sections to your favorite section. So if I go to scheduler, because I'm an operations manager, and then to say projects is not in the list, but we'll say jobs and sales. In updating that will then give me a shortcut there. Whilst I'm in the same area, recents is the concept of it stacks the last section you went to at the top of the pile and rotates it down. So again, if you're you're commonly going to like areas without having to hunt for it where it is on the screen. You've got a quick access location on the left-hand side.
Awesome. Thanks, Dev, for your question. Let's just say you are looking very slick, my friend. It's lovely to see you there.
Thanks, Dave.
Scheduler. I heard you mention the scheduler. We do get questions about that. Making changes to the scheduler once it's configured. Can people do that on their own, or do they have to come to you to do it?
To an extent. So we, as part of our implementation process, will have heavy consultation and configuration as part of that initial build. So we'll get it to 100% for usability, but you may want to jump in and make some subtle little changes. That is available to you, but we will filter certain areas to only being accessed based on what is okay to be edited and what potentially needs a bit more of a admin guide level, idea of what you're updating. So 100% all customizable from our perspective. It's just a bit more restrictive on what might be accessible to the end user.
All right. So case study now. I've made a mistake on someone's induction because I'd make a lot of mistakes and I probably should be fired from my job. But how can I fix it before anyone realizes?
Sure. So our induction's usually accountable for the individual who is being onboarded. So they can access at any point data that is accessible. So this is typically from either the HR module, or you have in that shortcut section a access to your particular induction for yourself. So this is the induction record for Kyadmin. There's not much in there, but if the white card was uploaded at the wrong year, then you can edit the existing. But in this case, it's not been added at all. So I'll show you how to add that. So we would go to assessment date, we'll say of the 4th. And then that's a pending item as part of that. If that was supposed to be 2022, you can pop in and update 2020 instead of 2022. You can pop in and edit that at any point, and then that will update that record. So whilst we're in induction as well, it's basically our onboarding approach, whereby we can get a list of items completed when the employees start. So that could be personal details, it could be new employee onboarding, as well as training logs, certifications, and understanding of certain articles, procedures, etc., as part of their role in the business.
Cool. I think we've just got time for about one more question before we go. Unless there is anyone out there with any very pressing issues, do hit us up in the chat and let us know. But let's talk sales for a second. What if you were trying to define product rates from different suppliers? Like, would you be able to, can that be done? Can you define different product rates?
So firstly, this is our new sales module that we're putting a lot of work in getting built. It may not be accessible to all of your clients, but we'll obviously can reach out and show you the difference between this version and the old version. But within here, to answer your question, you've got a concept of rate cards. So rate cards within here has different suppliers potentially providing costings for the same item or same product. So you'd have that product that is accessible by one supplier at said cost, and then you'd have that same product from another supplier at another cost. So that will give us the capability to have a list of products or rates for one supplier and another. This hasn't been configured, but you'd have the rate cards for the supplier in this section that you can view and update.
Cool. We do have one more question. Just before we go, we've got time to squeeze it in. Since that handsome devil is so excited to get questions in, does inductions link back to the schedule? It's a very important thing.
Sure does. So when you have a concept of a project that needs a resource, a project might have a certain requirement of that person to be able to be compliant to attend that site. So as part of the induction, you're tracking that I have my white card, I have my excavation license or skid steer license, etc. On the project itself, there will be references that in order for that person to be compliant to attend this site, they need to have 10 certifications. when we go to the scheduler and we pull that said resource across to the project, it'll run a check on what they've got in their list of certifications against what the project requires. If it doesn't meet it, we don't stop the schedule of that person. We just flag it because it might be a case that he's booked in to get certification the day before he's needed out on site, and we don't want to stop that resourcing of that individual. Just purely to flag it.
Cool. Well, I reckon that answers all of the questions. That's all the questions we've got time for today. Thank you so much for your time and coming in and doing it. We will be doing these on a semi-regular basis throughout the year, so keep an eye on those emails, and we'll be in touch with you guys a little bit later to see what you're up to. But thank you for joining us today. We hope that you did enjoy that free lunch. And if you didn't get that free lunch that was on offer, make sure you are signed up and ready for the next one, because we'll be around and we'll be dishing out a little bit of lunch and a little bit of facts. Mark Dent, it's been wonderful. Let's go have a bite to eat ourselves. Cheers,
Absolutely.
mate. Take it easy.
All.